Joining me right now is Louisiana Senator, member of the Senate Judiciary, Appropriations, and Banking Committees, Sen Kennedy. Senator, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
We have talked so much about the Communist Party of China and this really aggressive espionage campaign that they're doing. Of course, the supply chains that are in China, making the U.S. so reliant on so many important things. What's most important in your view right now in terms of what the president should be putting in this executive order today against China?
Here's what we should expect from China, and here's what we need to recognize. Number one, the Chinese people are wonderful folks. I've visited their country many times. They're wonderful people. Number two, the Communist Party of China, led by President Xi, is acting like a bunch of thugs, and the president needs to stop it. Number three, this is what we should ask for from China. We don't want a Cold War. We just want China to become a responsible stakeholder in stable world order. That means they've got to stop cheating, stop stealing countries' intellectual property, open up their markets, stop grabbing islands in the South China Sea, stop bullying Australia, and I could keep going. The problem, and some of it is America's fault. Let me explain why I'm saying that. For 25 years, the cultured, cosmopolitan, tuna tartare set, the experts told us, look, be patient with China. Free enterprise will change them. Don't stand firm. Give them what they want. Well, free enterprise didn't change China. China has tried to change free enterprise, and we have to stand up to them, not to try to dominate them, but to tell them to follow international rules. Now, Trump's doing that. And he's been the first president that I can remember who has done it.
Do we have the support of the rest of the world? I mean, a lot of the things that you're saying that the Chinese Communist Party is doing is impacting the whole world. Look, they just invaded India. Okay? Look, they just militarized the South China Sea. Look, they just overreached in Hong Kong. So is it just the U.S. versus China, or is this the world versus China and the Communist Party? And then I want to ask you about the capital fight that we're having. Do you see any coincidence in the fact that over the last 6 months, President Trump has pushed this idea to stop investing in companies that are part of the surveillance state? Stop it. Americans should not be investing the thrift fund money or the railroad 401ks. Don't put that money into things like Hikvision, which is a Chinese company, and they're tracking the Uyghurs who are in camps, or companies that are building equipment for the military. As the president has been saying, stop investing in China, Xi Jinping is telling the country, we need a bull market in place. And as soon as he says it, immediately millions of Chinese start opening stock accounts. Look at the Shanghai Composite. It's up 14% in 2 weeks. Coincidence there that the U.S. is trying to stop the investment and Xi Jinping saying, no, keep it going. So we have this bull market going to attract foreign investors.
Well, once again, we have to make the Chinese Communist Party understand that we expect them to play by the rules. Now, other than the United States, Maria, you know how many other countries trust China? None. Zero. Nada. But they're scared. China is the second largest economy. China uses its economic heft to bully other countries, and many other regions of the world are scared to stand up to them. Now, there's some exceptions. Australia is standing up to them. India is standing up to them. Canada is standing up to them. We need to join with our allies, including but not limited to Europe, and say to China, look, you're going to play by the rules, or we're not going to do business with you. And that's all they will understand. Remember, they've had 25 years of being able to do whatever they want to do.
Well, look, I don't see France, I don't see Germany, and I don't see Italy changing their Huawei infrastructure.
Well, we've got to. Huawei is an important issue. You're right, but we've got to convince France and Germany, and I think they're watching what we're doing, that they shouldn't be scared. we'll take the lead, but the world needs to join together. And I don't want to paint too much of a dismal picture here. I'm very proud of the Australian government. Yeah. I'm very proud of the fact that Modi and India is standing up to them. I'm very proud of what Canada's doing. Not every country is running and hiding in the corner, but some of them are, and we've got to take the lead.
You're right. Yeah, no, I think you make a really good point in terms of Canada and Australia. Even the UK is coming around as well. Let me ask you about the debate over police funding. Heating up in the 2020 race, presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden entertaining the idea of now diverting money away from law enforcement. He also came out with an economic plan today, but he did so with Bernie Sanders, basically making an announcement that we have a show of unity. Bernie Sanders believes in my economic plan, which, of course, is higher taxes and possibly a wealth tax if Elizabeth Warren has a voice in there. Your reaction to what we're hearing from Joe Biden this morning?
Well, Vice President Biden's principles are a little fluid. I mean, his campaign slogan seems to be, I have principles, and if you don't like them, I have others. This new Democratic position of let's defund the police. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't think the American people will support it. But apparently the vice president and the new Democratic position is that all cops are racist. Most Americans are racist. The criminals are not, they're not bad people. They're just misunderstood. And if we have a social worker talk to them, everything will be okay. I think that's a very naive view of the world. And I think we're seeing that. I said this the other day, and I meant it. Chicago is now the country's largest outdoor shooting range, and other cities are following it. Here in New Orleans, it's happening. In Atlanta, in Philadelphia. And I don't think it's a coincidence that most of these urban areas are run by Democratic mayors who are clearly holding the police back.
So you think that these are Democratic policies that are worsening the cities? I mean, look, crime in New York up huge in the last couple of weeks.
Well, if you're serious about trying to help people in our inner cities who are our neighbors and our friends and are less fortunate than us, you don't defund the police. You increase police presence. You do something about inner city schools where learning is uncommon and violence is very common. You talk frankly to young men and women about the family unit. You ask them to stop having children outside of marriage, and we need to revamp all of our social programs to make sure we're getting results. Now, that's not symbolic. That's real progress.
Well, yeah, this sounds very practical, Senator. Love talking with you as always.